Hi, this is Michelle Mellon, author of Down by the Sea and Other Tales of Dark Destiny, and you are watching Dark Destiny Dissected. This is episode 12, and we're talking about the back seat. The back seat was originally called the tunnel. I had this idea that I was going to make the big reveal be the fact that all of these things were only happening inside this woman's head, thus relating the tunnel of the story to the tunnel of her mind. But the whole thing got too complicated and contrived. So I decided to go for a different feel, which I felt was a little less awkward. Hopefully you feel the same way. As I was pulling together the stories for this collection, I almost didn't include this one because I was afraid the book was starting to have an anti-baby sub-theme. It's not that I don't like babies, it's just that they terrify me with their need and their helplessness. So anyway, enough about my issues. I hope you enjoy this excerpt from The Back Seat, and we'll check out Down by the Sea and Other Tales of Dark Destiny to read more. She looked down at her hands where they gripped the steering wheel, tensely, tightly, clinging so hard that the veins stood out like bluish-green strings under her skin. No, not strings, she thought, bands, stretched to the limit and waiting to snap, which would leave her hands hanging limp and useless from the ends of her arms. Right now it all held together in some delicate balance of form and function, but there was something about her hands that set her teeth on edge. She could feel those islands of enamel in her mouth, also gripping tightly, incisors, bicuspids, molars pressing against each other in an attempt to merge. She glanced at herself in the rearview mirror, waiting for a grind, a crack, a shift to ease the ache in her jaws. She focused again on her hands. There was something hideous about them, not at first sight, although they looked so tiny with the fingers hiding on the other side of the wheel, like they were truncated, miniature Muppet hands at play. There was something bad about them she couldn't quite see, but she knew it was there, waiting, taut and terrible under the surface of her skin, just like her bluish-green rubber band veins. A horn sounded, then again, and again. Each instance had an exponential effect, bouncing around and echoing in the tunnel. The blaring swelled until she thought she could actually see the sound polluting the air. She wanted to cover her ears, but her hands were glued to the wheel. The noise crowded out her thoughts and filled her senses until she could hear, touch, taste, smell nothing but the black caused by hand to horn. She felt nauseous and congested and hoped the pain traveling from her jaw to her temple signaled that it would soon be over, that she wouldn't have to live with what she knew and felt but couldn't seem to remember, something about what her hideous hands had done. Suddenly the sound stopped and the tunnel was quiet and dark. Only a few cars ever obeyed the daytime headlight sign in the tunnel. She was not one of them, and apparently neither were any of her fellow travelers. She tried, but her hands wouldn't move to flick them on. In the feeble trickle of daylight, however, she could see no movement. After the cacophony of horns, the stillness was unsettling. Then she thought she heard an echoing thud. Car door slamming in anger, frustration, fear. But no one walked past her car, in front of her car, behind her car. She checked all of her mirrors. No shifting shadows, no shapes peering in windows or trying to make contact. Hands still gripping the wheel, she turned from side to side. No one. No one outside their car, anxiously pacing the lanes. No one climbing the curb to the emergency phone to report the broken lights. No eerie display of backlit screens as people grappled with cell phones to call to talk about traffic, notify babysitters, or solicit comfort from loved ones. No one sat inside their cars nor on top of their cars. No one stood or paced or raged at the inexplicable delay. There was no one else in the tunnel. In the silence, she continued to sit upright in her seat, hands on the wheel, eyes facing forward. She knew the radio was broken. She knew the glove box was empty. She had no cell phone. She thought she might have a purse tossed carelessly in the back seat. Perhaps she could find something in there to distract her from whatever it was that was trying to creep into the near memory corners of her mind. But she could not bring herself to turn around. She no longer willed her hands away from the wheel. Instead, she was happy to see them rooted there, safe. They were not busy doing bad things. Besides, the car smelled of stale smoke, sweat, and something else. She was sure the something else smell was coming from the back seat.